Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on our mid-year forecast. This is our commercial version. We're so happy to have you with us this afternoon on nortonintelligence.com. I wanted to take a second to introduce our panel today. We have Chase Unger, part of our commercial division. He has been in the business for the last 7 years or so, but been with Norton for 4 years and has been a great addition to our commercial team. And then Pat Cisco, who is a partner with our Norton Commercial Group, and you've been with us for the past 8 years.
8 years,
and you came in the traditional way. You married into the family, so that was a great way to come into the Norton family. But we've been so blessed to have Pat. Pat's also one of our sales managers with our commercial group as well. So we're certainly so happy to have Chase and Pat with us here today. Speaking of places, we're here at the Olympic venue. This is the home of the 1996 Olympics here on Clarksbridge Road. This is the rowing and canoe kayak venue from 1996. It has a special place in my part. It's what actually brought me to Gainesville and to North Georgia, and I've been here ever since. But I had the good fortune of working here at the venue as they built really a small city on this site, and to see what it's changed into over the years is pretty phenomenal. And I really like to point out the fact that this is the only Olympic venue left from 1996 that actually is still used today for what it was intended. It actually hosts world championships and NCAA tournaments, and so we're very fortunate to have such an amazing place. So if you haven't visited the boathouse here at the Olympic venue, certainly take time to do so. It's a great space. So with that, we're going to jump into our Q&A with our two experts. So Chase and Pat, we certainly appreciate you guys being here and sharing what's happening in the market. I think this is one of the best ways to learn what's happening is to the people with the boots on the ground. You're working with the clients, the customers, you're hearing what's happening and seeing in the market. So, Chase, I'll start with you. Just sort of give us a general sense, what do we see in the commercial market? What are we seeing? Some hot products? Are we seeing, is the market softening? Is it still a good market? And maybe it just depends on the type of product out there, but what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think going into the year, there was certainly a lot of uncertainty in the market.
Some of the political stuff going on there, certainly.
Exactly, interest rates, everything
Sure.
like that. So activity is picking up. It's been stable this year. I've been pleasantly surprised with the amount of activity that we've seen. As far as hot products, industrial has remained great over the last several years.
Any particular area for industrial that you're seeing?
Really all over Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, the port in Gainesville has obviously been a great asset for this market. 400 market is probably the lowest vacancy in North Georgia.
Yeah.
That's remained very hot. Multifamily's kind of slowed down a little bit. Office has certainly slowed down a little bit. Small retail has been fantastic. Larger retail, not so much, but I think overall it's been consistent, and we've seen a good amount of activity overall. So.
Yeah, speaking of multifamily, I think we're a little bit maybe oversaturated now in apartments. That's been hot, but housing is still a real issue. Inventory has still been a huge issue. We're down about 7 million units nationally for people to live. So it's kind of curious that we've seen all of this influx of multifamily. But it's not filling up as quick, and I think maybe some of it's the affordability factor. I mean, average rents of about $1,800. But you also mentioned office. Are we seeing, I know COVID effect, we talk a lot about that. Obviously, people disengaged from the office during that period of time. We're starting to see large companies push people back into the office because they had this empty space. Are you seeing some of that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at, some of these big office owners in town especially, they're reporting great leasing numbers. I think there's definitely a flight to quality. There was a big value add push there over the last several years, but I think now people are focused on, what are the amenities around it? What can their workers do? So I think you have a good quality office product, you're not going to have any problem there. Suburban office could be hit or miss. I think medical's done really well, but it kind of just depends on, like I said, the quality of the space you have. So.
Great point. Pat, how about you? What do you see overall market? Kind of what's the flow out there?
I would agree with Chase. Market has been healthy, particularly where we help sellers sell and buyers buy here in North Georgia. We're seeing prices go up steadily, and I think that a lot of that one is the attributes to demand of the region that I touched on. Cap rates are going down. Supply in investment listings and investment property that one could purchase is going down, and investor demand's going up. So all those things kind of add up to a healthy market with price increases.
So what do you think what inventory do you think is in demand out there? Obviously, we still see, I think land is still very desirable. You can't make more of it, right? It's a precious resource. So what do you see when you're dealing with your customers and clients? I know we talk about obviously a lot of industrial space, as you mentioned, Chase, here in the North Georgia market, but it seems like there's a demand for maybe some smaller service type industrial space. Are we seeing some of that, Pat?
There is. I mean, definitely with your flex or your smaller industrial space, absorption is quick. There are plenty of users out there. Kind of bigger picture industrial trends that we've seen in recent years, increase in demand in data centers, cold storage plants, EV vehicles, battery plants. So the big ones kind of have those big uses, whereas the small, as I would put it, local businesses, regional satellite offices for businesses are kind of taking up that smaller space.
Right, and they need to service an SK battery. It's just not everything in house. You need the small vendors to come in and help service equipment and do other things with them as well. So business breeds business. So certainly a great thing here for North Georgia. Chase, I'm gonna go back to something you said. You talked about the amenities, which that's kind of the first time I've ever really thought about that, but at least in that sense is, so when you're relocating to an area, I know that a lot of times if I'm a big business, where's my labor going to live? Where are they going to shop? Where are the kids going to go to school? Those all come to be big factors. And I know even here in the North Georgia region, airports, we looked at the airport. We had a nice visit with the folks here in Gainesville at the Lee Gilmer Airport. And that was such an amenity. So are those the kind of things that businesses are looking at as they relocate to this market?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when there is high vacancy in office space, I mean, companies are going to be a little pickier and want to see, okay, what else can we provide besides a quality office space for our employees?
Yeah. I think that's just such a great point. So the hot topic, a buzzword, we talk about it all the time right now. It's whether it's residential or commercial, but the effect of interest rates. What's happening in the market. Obviously, borrowing money is always a big aspect of, if I'm going in to make an investment, how does that affect me? Pat, when you're dealing with your customers and clients, is it affecting some of their decision making, or is it a factor at all?
Well, it's. In most transactions, it is a factor. Not all properties selling for all cash, but where we've been with interest rates in the past at least couple years is relatively stable. We saw that huge increase post-COVID 2022 timeframe where rates went from what seemed like 3 to 6+ in a matter of months. So that, of course, had major effects on the market. But right now, where we've kind of stabilized, buyers have come to understand what the cost of capital is and find ways to get funded.
Speaking of cash, are we seeing a lot of folks that are coming to the table with cash?
Absolutely. Yeah. In the commercial market in particular, many transactions, either all cash or a 1031 exchange from a previous sale.
Great point.
Of course, that entices sellers to maybe to come down on their price given the time to close for those offers. But commercial market, cash is king.
Speaking of timing, I feel like from what I've seen, especially here in recent years, I feel like commercial transactions have been moving faster. And maybe it's the technology, maybe it's the money, maybe it's the desire, maybe it's the demand. But I feel like that we're moving. It used to be that, you get into a commercial transaction, it might be 18 months, 24 months, you go through rezonings and we go through all of the hoops. But am I wrong to say, I feel like we're moving a little bit faster now? You think that's happening?
It is relative to the type of transaction.
Sure.
Does it need to be rezoned? Does it need to have proper permitting? Or are we just looking at the traditional things that slow down transactions, whether that's financing, whether that's title, inspection, environmental due diligence. So, but the short answer is yes, they are quicker in pace now than they were when I started in the business, because I'm seeing a lot more competition on that front end. When I've got a listing and there's multiple parties who are coming in with offers, typically the seller's going to look at them, yes, for price, but also, time it's going to take to get to the closing table.
Yeah. Anything to add on interest rates, or what are you seeing on your side?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the sharp increase in interest rates certainly hampered in investments. But I, like Patrick said earlier, I think that activity is definitely increasing. I think we're seeing some competition with fixed income right now, which has made investors kind of stay on the sidelines. But now that everything's stabilized, and I see a good path forward from here. So.
Great. Yeah, and I think people are just getting used to it, right? It's just the new normal.
Yep.
And quite frankly, the 50-year average for a 30-year fixed mortgage on the residential side is 7.3%. So it's not, we're kind of in that normal range, and I know that's on the residential side. But another thing that I think we're seeing, it seems like it's on the news every day, and Chase, you alluded to, especially on that Georgia 400 market, especially looking at the outlet malls, but it's the retail changes out there. Every day you hear of some big retailer closing 50 stores or all their stores. Joann's, Big Lots, Advanced Auto. Kroger just announced they're closing 50 stores across the U.S. I think 4 here in Georgia. How's that going to be affecting our market? And I guess the bigger question is, what does that mean? What happens to that space moving forward? Who's the user for that, and what, or does somebody come in and tear it down for the dirt? What do you see on that front?
Well, yeah, that's a great question, and that's to be determined. I think a lot of these big box stores like the Joann's Fabrics, the Party Cities, that is going to be difficult to lease back up. I think a lot of it may need to be repurposed.
Yeah.
I think landlords are going to need to get creative on how they're going to get someone else in there. Because when it boils down to it, the zoning, you can't just change that. So
well, if you're in a strip mall, you're in a strip mall, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that all unfolds. I'm really not too worried about it. I think retail is still going to remain a hot asset class, but it is going to be interesting to see who ends up taking over those spaces. So,
go, Pat.
And I'd say, to that point, a lot of the tenants that you named are or were high credit tenants. So they are in. They're in some of the best shopping centers, across these communities. So with that, there's going to be high demand from either other great credit tenants, or local organizations who have proven themselves and have the credit worthiness and necessitate that kind of space to move in. Sure, retrofits to self-storage, to medical use are still going to happen too. But the most recently here, I want to say it was a Party City on Dawsonville Highway. The bookstore from the mall is going to move in. So I mean, there's not a lot of construction going on in the retail space. So because of that, there's, only so many shopping malls where these tenants can operate.
So
their
those
business.
gaps are being filled by other uses.
I would say yes, at least in the last couple of years.
Great, and I think what I've seen too is maybe a lot of things have default more to, instead of goods but services. I'm not selling my tchotchkes anymore. Now I'm selling. It's the nail salon. It's the it's the haircut place. It's all of those things. I think service, or it's maybe the small accountant. The H&R Blocks that move in. I think that's part. They're taking some of that space as well. Are we seeing some of that?
Well, when I think you can order so much online nowadays, you also really need to make it an entertainment type district on these outlet mall. Like the outlet mall in Dawson now is selling alcohol to bring people in. I think having activities and stuff that's not just shopping will really make it a desirable place to come to, and a desirable place for retailers to lease.
Something to give the kids 2 hours to run around the park at the mall while you do your shopping. Yeah, that's a great point. I hadn't thought about it, but everything's really about an experience now.
Right,
I know I've seen. I think it was over in Oconee County. There was a facility that it's actually a sports complex with indoor baseball fields and different things, but part of it has a food court. And it has some restaurants and it has other components to it. So it's a interesting mixed use. As part of it is for entertainment factor, the other part may be for food service. So I think it is that blend that we're seeing more as a one-stop shop to go do several things, something for the parents to do, something for the kids to do, and mix that up. That's a great point. So we talked a little bit about the office space and the return of employees. Are we still seeing that? And Chase, again, you mentioned something is kind of a repurposing. Are we seeing some repurposing of office space as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the hot topic now is resident or office to residential. Yeah. Which I think is easier said than done for sure. But I think in 2027, if all goes as plans from the announcements, I mean, we're going to see a big influx of that. They're not retrofitted with the bathrooms for that. But I think all in all, these locations of these office buildings are desirable. And so whether that is people returning to office or, we're retrofitting some of these to residential or any other purpose, I don't see it being just torn down. So
last week I spoke to a guy in property management out in Seattle. And Seattle was one of the first markets trying to convert office space to housing. And he said exactly what you did. It's, the infrastructure is really the biggest problem. And not only is it, how do you get the bathrooms in? Because you're in an office building, you have 4 bathrooms total on a floor. And now you have to have a bathroom in every location. And then the other part of that is, where does it go? You have to have the sewer capacity to also attend to that many people and that many flushes in a day. So it's not just, and then the water capacity. So it's not just as simple as 4 walls. It's also what's the infrastructure that goes with it. Pat, how about you? What do you see on that repurposing or the office space and returning? Do you think that continues to be a trend, or is it more of the repurposing?
It's definitely a trend. I mean, we're 5 years now post-COVID, so employers have good data to look at productivity of their employees remote or in office. Now, do employees want to return back to that office space that they were in before? No, times have changed, trends have changed. So employers are keeping up with those types of demands in order to get their folks back into the office. What I will say, though, is in these suburban metro markets like we operate out of here in Gainesville and across North Georgia, office is really stable. And quite frankly, there's probably even a demand for more space. Whereas in some of these big cities, they have over the past 20, 30 years built way too many office buildings that pre-COVID and in the years preceding that were mostly full, whereas now they're not. So the opportunity to convert them to residential, while it is very costly, is enticing for some owners. But here in the Gainesville market, across North Georgia, kind of in these smaller communities, office is still in high demand. And, people want to get out of their houses and want to get to those city centers where they can, do their work, have a place to go to lunch, and maybe meet some friends after work. Yeah,
and I think to your point too, these smaller markets kind of makes for an easier commute too, right? If I'm getting out of the city and I'm not living in the city, then I come to a small town, whether it's Clarksville or Gainesville or different places around North Georgia. It's nice to have that 5-minute commute to your office space, and makes a huge difference. So
I certainly enjoy it.
Yeah. So I think your point is, and so in these smaller markets, that smaller office space really is still desirable and still in demand. Just the big buildings, it's going to be interesting to see how that changes. I know they try to market at about 75% occupancy, and I think they've been running at about 50% occupancy, which for just, if you just do the math for a banker, that math doesn't work. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on the investment side. Pat, you mentioned this earlier. I wanted to circle back to it because this is a buzzword, a hot topic in our industry, but data centers. I don't know how many people you talk to all the time, but I'm looking for space for data centers. Obviously, with technology and with what's happening with AI and just the amount of information that we're pumping out every day, and in the use of the computers and cell phones and all of the technology they have, is that still, the data center demand? Are we still seeing? Is that going to keep growing? And is it growing just at an exponential amount?
It's going to keep growing. The evolution of AI is here, and it's only going to continue to grow. So, looking back, 10 years ago, when folks said we need more data centers for, YouTube or Netflix or other streaming platforms, they were right. The internet is growing, and now with AI and the demands that it has on the infrastructure and technology, data centers are going to be not only built, but also have to new technology put in existing ones so that they can keep up with this demand from a storage standpoint, from a cooling standpoint, all of the factors that go into keeping these things on the up and up with the latest technology. We are very much booming.
So with that point, there's obviously more things. So talk about infrastructure with data centers. Is that something that, you're on the Georgia 400 market. I know that's probably where a high tech kind of market. Are we seeing, can a data center just go anywhere, or is there a particular, are they looking for, they need power grids, they need water for cooling. Those things are getting more available in more rural markets, but are they still being hubbed around some sort of municipality or infrastructure? And maybe some of that's, you would say labor, but we're putting that labor out of business in the sense that it's all being now data driven and AI driven. So Chase, what do you see on that side?
Yeah, I haven't seen too much of that in North Georgia. I know there's some large scale projects in Coweta, Fayette County, South Fulton.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting to see if it's able to work our way up North Georgia more. I've seen a few small projects, but I'm pretty sure in the next 10 years we're going to need to double our grid, and I think some like 80% of that is due to AI, and especially with the cloud computing and all that. It's how are we going to power that is the question. Is that going to be up to these data center developers? Is this going to be up to Georgia Power? Who is going to do that? And then also the availability of land for that, and what local municipalities are going to allow that in their communities. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the answer is yes, Tommy. Having a data center close to a major power station or substation is critical, because they do necessitate more power than almost any other user out there. So the location of those are strategic. Of course, you've got to have the right governments to work with you who want to have this in their backyard. But at the end of the day, so long as AI continues to grow, this market is going to grow too. And I think I heard last that there's a need for 20% more data centers across this country.
Yeah, and I think municipalities like them because they bring in a tax base and they don't bring in a whole lot of people. And that's the less strain on your roads and your schools and infrastructure. And so they become somewhat of a desirable product, other than the demand it puts on your power grids, which I know our friends at Georgia Power and Jackson EMC are certainly trying to figure that out every day, and how to power those, because it's a big part. So kind of sticking with that theme, and we've alluded to it, but kind of want to dig back into it, is the AI component, and more specifically, how are we using it, Chase, from a commercial real estate standpoint? How are our customers using the artificial intelligence? We see obviously it across all industries, across all businesses, and they're implementing it. But just honing in on what we do every day, how are we utilizing that artificial intelligence?
Yeah, from a brokerage standpoint, I think it's very beneficial. It certainly cuts down some of the time that it takes us to make marketing materials. We're able to, get a better grasp of foot traffic, traffic counts, stuff like that. And so
I would say we are just skimming the surface when it comes to AI, particularly us in this industry, where we are. I wouldn't call our industry high tech. It is becoming more and more high tech. A lot of these software providers, we talked about backfilling retail centers previously. Well, there's software now that'll say, you need this retailer in this space, whether you're that retailer or you're that landlord. It is almost making the decisions for you based on the data and based on what it knows from the market. We all walk around with cell phones in our pockets, so big data knows where we are, where we're shopping, what our trends are, and there's software that, supplements that data and offers landlords and retailers and all users across the industry information that they never thought would have been available.
Yeah. And I think what's great for us, just to keep us in the game, but one thing that AI can't do, they can't negotiate. And they can try, but they can give us data, and but at the end of the day, we truly know the movement of people. Yes, it's one thing to look at numbers. I sort of kid, but AI can't give you a hug, right? And we're still in a relationship business, and we still are we're connecting with human beings. And I think even though AI is a great tool, and we are going to continue to utilize it, and if you're not using it in your industry today, then you're probably already behind. But I think for us, it does give us even more information to give our customers and clients a leg up when they're making business decisions, when they're trying to figure out, okay, what is that traffic count? What is the labor force that I can use to man my industry? Those types of things. So I think that becomes very, very important. Speaking of that, so along with AI, what we've seen AI fueling is, it's the Amazons of the world. We see the distribution centers, and then with that, you have all the logistics out there. So are we still seeing, not still, but is that continue to be a big market out there from trucking companies? We have the new inland port that's coming here in Hall County, which we're fortunate to have. So do we see that demand for distribution and logistics, Chase?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's only going to continue from here. Like you said, the inland port's going to be a great resource for us and logistic companies. So I don't foresee that slowing down. It's been industrial's been a hot product the last several years.
And you still got to move goods and services, right?
Absolutely.
That's one thing. I got to move a box from here to there. So you got to have a truck to be able to do that, or a machine to be able to do that. Pat, what are you seeing? And like Amazon, this obviously, you can get something delivered to your door within hours from what they're doing. A lot of that now is the AI technology and the machinery and things like that. But those distribution centers will continue to grow and expand, and you think maybe expand into more rural markets to get to their customers?
They only have to at this point. I mean, what am I seeing? I'm seeing packages being delivered to my door. I'm sitting on my porch. I'm watching the trucks all day long go down the street. In fact, Amazon just released their electric Rivian trucks. So the game is changing there as far as getting boxes to the door. But at the end of the day, these boxes come from somewhere. And it's not just me and my neighbors who are ordering things off the internet. It is this entire country. So how can these big companies service their customers? That's through better means of distribution and faster channels to get that box to your door.
Yeah, there's going to be a huge demand for that in the infrastructure. So we've talked a lot of different topics, what's happening in the marketplace. So we're halfway through 2025. And obviously we talk about how, real estate is a long game, even though, as we've talked, things are moving so much quicker now than they ever have. But, Pat, what do you see the second half of 2025? Anything different? Anything, are we going to continue to see a market grow? Where do we head?
We are heading in a good direction. As I've seen it in this business, second quarters can tend to be a little stagnant. First quarter, you're finishing up your opportunities from the previous year. Second quarter, people are focused on Well, maybe it's just they're focused on other things other than real estate, and kids are finishing up school
Sure.
and so forth.
Life,
but
yeah.
people come out from the woodworks come second half of the year, and business gets booming. So I look forward to being a part of that and helping out my customers.
And maybe some tax incentives to get things done before the end of the year.
There's always that too.
Yeah, need to move some money and those kinds of things. But I think there's always an opportunity in real estate, regardless of the time of year. But I think yes, second half people gear up and hit it hard. So Chase, what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, I think market uncertainty definitely brings opportunity. I think the environment moving forward bodes well for commercial real estate in the second half of this year and on. So I would definitely say now would be a great time to buy. So.
Yeah. And what about North Georgia in general? I mean, I feel like we've talked about how, what a great place we live in and all of the amenities we have, and obviously access to, the world's busiest airport and infrastructure and Four Seasons and, all of the things, good schools and golf courses and mountains and lakes. So obviously, and we've seen that influx of population coming to North Georgia. So do you see that we are positioned really in a really good spot moving forward, not necessarily for the next 2025, but for the next 5 to 10 years? Do you feel like that we will continue to be a place in the country that people want to relocate?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's obviously a great place to live and work, and I mean, all you got to do is drive up every major interstate and you see more and more construction and more people moving here. And I think the pro-business environment in Georgia is attractive, so I only foresee it continuing to go up.
Yeah, 11 years in a row, #1 state to do business in, state of Georgia. So we certainly have only one way to go. Pat, how about you? What do you think for the next 5 to 10?
You see so many of the fastest growing counties in Georgia being up in our region and in north central Georgia. So, with that is going to come market movement, future development. And by the way, there is a lot of great undeveloped land in our region. So rooftops comes retail, comes office, comes industrial. Get ready. The market is here, and it's here to stay, and it's only going to grow.
I feel like we've been saying this for the last 20 years. It's just and it's only moving faster, and it's just getting bigger, and I think that's part of the market. So I always like to finish on this last question. Just if you can think of something, if it's advice, whether it's a good investment or just if someone's in that commercial realm, what would be some advice that you give them for a good investment or good opportunity moving forward? And we may have already mentioned it today, but what would you say?
I mean, I think first of all, it's important to note it is a long-term game.
Yep.
I like multifamily moving forward. I think we're just continue to need more places to live, and especially with a lot of these home builders needing to build larger homes according to these municipalities on bigger lots.
Great point. Yeah.
And then the affordability of it for first-time home buyers, I think multifamily is a great asset class moving forward.
And you get the density, right? And that's what, but some of the challenges when you average $1,900 a month in rent is it affordable? But it is what it costs today. And so we are seeing that median household income and median home price start to close just a slight bit, but not nearly enough. But you're right. I think there's going to be a huge demand for that multifamily. Pat?
Well, there's a lot of great product types that I'm recommending to my clients out there. Investments always at the top of the list. Being able to identify solid investments at attractive cap rates, meaning good prices, is always a good place to look. Not that it lasts long on the market, but more importantly than just looking at the raw cap rate is looking at inefficiencies. So many investors that I talk to want that top line. What's the cap rate? What's the cap rate number? Well, the cap rate's indicative of what the seller has done with that property. Where are the gaps in that? How can you maximize that property's potential and make that investment even stronger?
Great advice. Great way to look at it is, what's your need, not what is the need before you. So I think that's a great way to look at it. Well, gentlemen, certainly have enjoyed this conversation. Your insight on what's happening in the market, I know is just incredibly valuable. I know that our customers and clients certainly appreciate you taking the time to share with them what's happening. I certainly encourage you to reach out to Pat and to Chase Chase for any of your commercial real estate needs. I know they'd be glad to help you in your endeavors. And we certainly appreciate you being here today, and we look forward to serving you in the future.